Welcome to Joy, Passion, and Profit, where we empower entrepreneurs to build companies that change the world. We believe there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur, and our goal is to provide you with insight and wisdom to bring your vision to reality. If you're committed to making an impact as well as making a profit, let us welcome you to Joy, Passion, and Profit. Hello, and welcome to Joy, Passion, and Profit, where the intention is to empower entrepreneurs to build companies that change the world. Contrary to what you may see in the media, it is my belief there's never been a better time to be alive on the planet than right now. And when it comes to being an entrepreneur, there's never been a better time to launch a business than right now. And my intention with this podcast is to provide you with insights and inspiration that supports you in becoming the best entrepreneur you can possibly be. To do so, you might have to shift your mindset a little bit, because I believe being an entrepreneur should be an expression of your passion and your creativity. And you shouldn't have to be stressed out and overwhelmed while working 100-hour weeks. And being an entrepreneur should be exciting and fun. It should be a way for you to share your unique gifts and talents with the world while being handsomely compensated for your products and services. Of course, it will be challenging, but that's the beauty of it. Because if it doesn't challenge you, it can't change you. So I'd like to challenge you to change your mindset in a way that helps you understand the importance of making a difference while making a profit. So my intention is to bring on guests who can empower you to build a company that changes the world while supporting you in reaching all of your financial goals. And joining me today is Holly Jackson. She's a revenue and performance consultant, a TEDx speaker, a podcast host, a best-selling author, and founder of Business Builder Throwdown. And I recently met her on LinkedIn and attended one of her introductory sessions where she provided tons of value and insights about marketing. And I immediately knew I wanted to have her on the show to share some of her insights. So today, that's what we're going to be talking about: how to market yourself and your business. So without further ado, let's welcome Holly to the podcast. Hello, Holly, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
Doing fantastic. So before we jump into your work, I'd like to start off with a few icebreaker questions. So first of all, tell us where you're from.
I'm originally from Chicago, but I live in Raleigh, North Carolina today.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your family, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, my favorite little guy I'm looking to the side is my fur baby, Charleston Cooper. He is almost 2 years old. He's my sidekick and my main squeeze. My family, I have 4 nephews under the age of 9, so they keep me young and full of energy. They come from my siblings, my brother and my sister, who live just 2 hours west of where I live in Raleigh. My mom and stepdad are incredible, and my father, he's also incredible. That's where I get my entrepreneurship itch that I need to scratch continuously. And I am just grateful for my blood family, but also my chosen family, people in business and around the world that I get to do life with.
Nice. Now, are you a movie fan?
Of course.
Share one of your favorite movies.
Let's see. I love It's a Wonderful Life when it's Christmas time and we're coming up to Christmas time, which is my favorite time of the year. But I also love the movie Serendipity because I love the word serendipity.
Oh, I love that movie with John Cusack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that movie. As a matter of fact, I watched it the other day.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, love that movie. Now, name a book that's had a powerful impact on your life.
Oh my goodness. There are so many books. The one that is going to stand out for people today that's more recently changed my life is called Existential Kink. It is not about sex. People think it is. It's actually about shadow thoughts and our shadow self and learning how to bring the subconscious mind and things that are getting in the way of the patterns that we don't want to have, we want to break, and bringing them to the surface so we get more of what we want in life.
Ooh, I like that. I'll have to check that one out. Haven't heard of that one. Now, if I were to check out your music playlist, who are some of the artists out here?
A huge variety. I love pretty much all music, except I don't really do a lot of rap, and I also don't really do like heavy metal. But a lot of right now bluegrass and country, because I just went to a bluegrass music festival. So I've been just jamming out on the artists that I met there.
Now, there are some people who are pretty pessimistic about the future. while others are pretty optimistic about the future. So, where do you fall on that spectrum between optimism and pessimism for the future in general?
I would say that I'm very optimistic, sometimes a little too optimistic. And I also try to practice what we call non-attachment. So instead of having particular expectations about an event, the future, a situation, a relationship, having expectancy, not expectations, they're different. And then practicing non-attachment so that I'm not disappointed. And I say practice because I'm far from being perfect at this.
Great. Now, I'd like you to complete these sentences. I really love to.
Go rock climbing.
My superpower is.
Inspiring people.
I am proud of.
Ooh, doing my TEDx on fear and publishing my first book.
Life is.
Amazing.
One thing I'd like to change about the world is.
Ooh, I wish more people were awake and walking in their superpower and making positive changes in their community.
And the future is.
Exciting.
Exciting. So now I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce Holly the professional. So, in your own words, tell the audience what you do professionally.
Sure. So I'm a revenue and performance consultant, and a lot of people ask me, well, what does that mean? It means I work with business owners, entrepreneurs, and speakers on how to plug their profit leaks where they're leaving money on the table, how to optimize the revenue, and in addition to that, diversify their revenue streams so that they have a firm foundation in business, maximize their peak performance. And we do this in 5 categories. We look at their lead magnets, their sales process, their employee experience, their customer experience, and then their legacy. Legacy is super important. Most of the clients that I work with have a nonprofit, a foundation, or charitable donation that they give for every purchase that they receive. And we put messaging across that, but we also are able to then build their compass and make sure that we're actually building a business that they're excited and inspired about every single day, even when life gets difficult. So in a nutshell, that's what I do. There's a lot more to it beyond that. Obviously, as you know, marketing cuts across all 5 of those buckets. And I really just help these business owners live their dream life and heal communities through the ripple effect and impact that they have.
Now, I mentioned earlier that I believe there's never been a time to become an entrepreneur. What are your thoughts about that statement?
Never been a better time?
Yeah, never been a better time to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with the disruption of the pandemic where everybody's online, the fact that a lot of people are leaving traditional jobs, the fact that there's positioning and opportunity for online access, there's additional resources that we've never had from a funding perspective for entrepreneurs. And there's a huge open market for a lot of people that if you're smart and you're in the right place, you can solve problems in the market and make lucrative money from that and build substantial revenue. It's interestingly enough, the last year, a lot of folks have been freaking out about the potential looming recession. And I would say I've actually had my best year in business. The last 2 quarters were substantially larger than past quarters. And, quarter 2 was strong, quarter 3 was even stronger. So I would argue right now is a great time. If you're smart, you do your market research and you have the right strategies, you'll be very successful.
Yeah, my tagline says, "I'm an irrepressible optimist with a passion for the impossible." That's kind of the lens through which I see the world. And again, I don't deny all the challenges in the world, but it is my belief that there are a lot more things that are right with the world than are wrong with it. And it all depends on what you focus your attention on. And so I choose to focus my attention on that which is right versus that which is wrong. And that's one of the things that fuels my optimism, just where I focus my attention. So I want to go back just a little bit and talk about school and college and all that kind of cool stuff. So where'd you go to school?
Well, before we go to that, it's funny you say that because my bottle says where your focus goes, your energy flows. So I just want to highlight what you just shared because it's really important wisdom for people listening. Where I went to high school, Mount Tabor High School.
Okay. And in school, Did you think about entrepreneurship, or was that something that you came across later? Or shall I say, when did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
You know, when I was in high school, my dad, he was a mechanic and he had his own shop. So I helped him a lot. I helped with the books. I also helped from a grease monkey perspective, working on cars. And so I can't say that like the entrepreneurship bug bit me at that point and that I was like clear that I would do that. I think I was very stuck in the societal, go to college, get a degree, have a traditional job kind of bucket. And it took me a while to break free from that. But I think there were inklings of that from a very young age. That coupled with the fact that my grandfather was a highly successful traveling salesman who had a lot of international experience. I think those two things were a pretty big influence later on when I decided to start a business.
So, what were some of the jobs you had after high school?
Um, well, in high school, I was a babysitter, a young, like it's called a junior lifeguard, and then I was an aquatic swim instructor, and so I started pretty young. And in college, while I was paying my way through undergrad, I worked at a coffee shop. I was an aquatics curriculum coordinator, so I actually managed all of the aquatics teachers there. And then I worked for a company called Synergistic Networks, which was a tech company. And actually my website person to this day, I met him at that company and he still manages my website from 20 years ago. It's crazy. So yeah, kind of a diverse plethora of jobs.
Ah, now you mentioned graduate school. Is that what you said?
That was undergrad,
Undergrad.
graduate school. So I finished undergrad, did a year of working at Walgreens in retail as a manager. And I was like, wow, there's got to be something better than this. It was not very good money. And it was, very, you had to work a lot of weekends and holidays. And I was like, this is not what I was designed for. And it was very physical, like, unloading all the stuff from the truck. I was like, yeah, I got to do better. So I went back to graduate school at night and I worked full time. I got jobs that were more aligned to what I did in graduate school. So I worked for the Department of Health and Human Services for a while. And then eventually through NC State University, where I went to school, they had a group called Institute for Emerging Issues. Worked with them for a couple of years as a research assistant. And that's where I really got more passionate about education policy and dug deep into that space. And that's also why I worked in higher education for a while.
Now, I'm interested. How did you move to this whole thing called marketing? Obviously, being an entrepreneur, you can go in a lot of different directions, but you focus all of your energy, it looks like, on this whole thing called marketing. How did you get into marketing?
Well, so as I worked in corporate America, I had a lot of roles that were managing programs. So anywhere from working at University of California, where I worked across 11 universities for a massive implementation. It was in the technology space, but I was working with the business side, as well as technology and translating things. So I had to do a lot of communications to get stakeholders on board and clients on board and, make sure the technology team was being realistic with their requirements and, working with the business. And then I was doing a lot when I worked at Visa, so the big credit card company, where our leaders weren't comfortable being the spokespeople or the spokesperson for what we called our Genius Bar version of what we deployed at Visa. And so I got voice coaching lessons while I was there and was the spokesperson for launching that program, handled all the marketing material for that, handled adoption of that for our employees. That was then something we would deliver to clients. And so I just kept finding myself in these positions where I was in charge of communications and content calendars and, deploying messages and managing blogs and ghostwriting for executives that didn't have the time to write the things and tracking user adoption and all the things. And then also helping with massive website launches, website overhauls, and all the things. And found that I was really good at it and kept getting promoted in that space and was, elevated to executive management and at one point offered interim CIO. But I got tired of being laid off, so I went my own way.
Now, Excuse me. One of the things that keep a lot of people from becoming entrepreneurs is the big F word, fear. And I recently listened to your TED Talk where you came up with an amazing acronym for fear after having an experience with a bear. Now, can you share that story and the fear method you created as a result of that experience?
Sure. Yeah. And for folks tuning in, I highly recommend you check out the TED Talk itself. It is something that was a lot of work to put together. But in a nutshell, I was going through a tough time in life, decided to take a solo trip backpacking in the woods in Lassen National Park in California. Everybody kept telling me, bring bear spray. I said, no, it's fine. Went on the trip, and on the third day of my trip, I was hiking out back to the car, but I was pretty deep in the woods and hadn't run across anyone for a while. And I noticed some fresh paw prints on the ground, bear tracks. And as I kept walking forward, I noticed a second set of smaller paw prints. So it dawned on me that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was a mama bear with her baby out there. We were also in the middle of a drought. And as I turned the next corner, there was Mama Bear, and she was not happy. I was wrong place, wrong time. She immediately began charging towards me. And as you can imagine, my life flashed before my eyes and time stood kind of still and slowed down. A lot of thoughts went through my head, and I decided I didn't want to die and listen to some sage wisdom that some other fellow backpackers shared with me the day before, and realized that I was going to have to charge this bear back. So I took a step forward and I charged Mama Bear back and had to do that twice for her to stop. Second time it worked and she walked away, and I stood there and held my ground, terrified. And as I noticed that she was finally gone, then I ran until I found other humans, and then I fell apart. But I held it together, and it was interesting. After that experience, I found that a lot of things I used to be really scared of, I was like, you faced a bear in the woods and you lived. Like, this is nothing. I remember when I was new to cycling, I used to be afraid of crosswinds and that the wind would blow me over and I'd fall over and get injured or get killed or blown into a car. And then I get on the bike after that experience and I'm like, you faced a bear. Like, a crosswind is not going to take you out. I think you're going to be okay. So that's kind of where the idea for the fear method came from. That alongside, I wrote my first book, and one of the chapters is on strategies for navigating chronic pain. And I kind of simplified those 7 or 8 strategies into 4 and built an acronym for it. So the fear method is really about how you can face any bear or fear in your life and charge it head on. And if I can charge a physical bear head on, there is nothing you cannot face in your life. So the fear acronym, F stands for face it, face your fear head on, stop denying it. E stands for embrace, embracing curiosity instead of letting fear take over. The A stands for advocating for what you want. And by the way, as a bonus, there's a second A that did not fit into the TED Talk, and that is to amplify the right mindset, the right thinking instead of the negative spirals. And then the R stands for reach out for support, because when we try to face our fears alone, it's a lot scarier than it needs to be. But again, I highly recommend you check out the TED Talk because it goes into a lot more detail than that.
And what was the title of your book?
The book is the same name as my podcast, which is Inspiration Contagion.
Inspiration Contagion. Yeah, we'll have to check that one out also. Now, of course, being an entrepreneur isn't easy. And of course, there are lots of challenges to deal with. So, what were some of the challenges you had to overcome as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, I mean, we could talk about those all day, as I'm sure most of the people ask that question on my podcast say the same thing. They're like, well, how much time do you have? The big ones are honestly, and the same things that I see with my clients. A lot of it's mindset. It's not letting, compare and despair get in the way. It's not letting any fear get in the way. It's getting out of your own way, hiring a coach or a mentor or both to help you see your blind spots. Because I'm telling you, I've been doing this for a while. You still need a coach. I don't care how long you've been doing it. You're going to have blind spots for the rest of your life. It's entertaining to me to this day where I'm like, oh, how did I not see that? But that's the reality of being human. So hiring a coach, investing in yourself, taking that leap of faith. And then also during the pandemic, I had started getting a lot of traction in the business. I lost all my clients. I was based in California where things got really shut down. And I took a leap of faith and bet against myself. I used the CARES Act to borrow against my retirement. It was a smart bet. I have paid that back in full and grown the business significantly since then. But it was a risk and it was scary. And I like to say to my clients, the best bet you can ever make is on yourself. So why wouldn't you take that bet?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, tell us in your services, what the heck is a profit leak plugger?
Well, people leave a lot of money on the table and they leave it in a lot of different ways. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is, and this is the biggest profit leak area we can close, is with their lead gen and their sales. With their lead gen, if they have a lot of calls coming in, but they're not really quality calls, that's a huge time waster and is also a huge revenue sink. So we want to make sure that they have a clear vision of who they're actually reaching out to, who's an ideal client. And if you have no idea what that is, then stop wasting your money, talk to somebody and hire somebody like me so we can get clear and get the right people in front of you. And then for the sales side, a lot of people think that, oh, I only need to ask for the sale once, or they don't even ask for the sale on a call. I'm like, are you crazy? And they don't realize that, 80% of sales happen after you ask 8 to 10 times. You have to follow up with that person 8 to 10 times before you're going to get a yes. That is very typical. And they get uncomfortable asking for that. And then a lot of clients have a lot of issues around mindset for money. They feel like money's dirty. They have subconscious negative beliefs about wealth. And we have to push through those because energetically, when you get on a sales call, if you're not feeling good about money, you are not going to get big sales. So those are just a few of the profit pluggers and profit leaks that I see continuously with most of my clients that I work with.
Now, for those people who are watching who are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur and they have absolutely no idea what a lead gen is, give us a quick little Cliff Note version of what do you mean by lead gen?
So lead generation is basically just bringing people into your world that are typically ideal clients. They're bringing your prospects into your world, and it's doing it in a way that it's filling your calendar consistently. So for example, I specialize mostly with LinkedIn lead generation, which means that we are consistently reaching out to your ideal people. In my case, it's reaching out to business consultants, CEOs, business owners. And we have specific areas like New Jersey and New York. People love me for some reason. So I always start there. So it's getting clear on who your ideal people are and bringing more of them into your world, getting them onto your calendar for having a conversation, getting them onto your email list so that they start to know, like, and trust you over time, because they might not be ready to get on a call. That could be scary. It's kind of like going on a first date for business. It's like, ooh, I'm not ready for that. So you want to build that relationship with them, but you can't do that until you bring them into your world. So it's really just bringing all those prospects into your world, whether it's LinkedIn, your email list, your event, your speaking, whatever that thing is.
Gotcha. So tell me what you mean by turning shiny objects into revenue generators.
Oh, I love this one. So, entrepreneurs have these new ideas all the time, right? And the problem is those are great, but if we don't create an action plan behind them, like what's the point? And you don't have a business if you don't have cash flow and revenue coming in. So I like to ask my clients, like, what is the shiny object that you're most excited and most passionate about? And then we build a case and a plan for how we're going to create revenue behind it. And if you listen to my podcast, that's one of the questions I asked towards the end of the revenue section is, what is the next shiny object that you want to chase? And we brainstorm how we can actually monetize and build revenue stream and cash flow behind that idea. Because if it doesn't have the ability to generate revenue, why are we doing it? And if we're doing it for other reasons that are going to support revenue, great. But typically, most people are just excited by that shiny object. So we have to demystify that and prioritize where we're actually going to put energy, money, and time.
Yeah, and see that's one of my challenges. I'll call it the shiny object syndrome, meaning I have this creativity that just sort of gets out of hand because I love writing, right? And I love writing books. And so I'll write one book and then I might market it just a little bit, but then I'm writing another book. So I've written a book a year for the past 9 years. And it's just in me. I just love it so much. But from a business perspective, I haven't allowed myself to focus enough on one shiny object to build a platform around that shiny object. And that's why when I ran across you, I said, oh, this person can help me kind of figure that all out. So I'm looking forward to eventually working with you. But again, that's something I think that for us as creatives, we love creating. But if you're not getting it in front of the people to buy or get your services, you're not going to build a business. So that's important that we take the time to figure out those shiny objects and then have some focus to get those shiny objects out to the world.
Yeah, and I want to pause there and just kind of reiterate what you shared there, because a lot of authors and writers and creatives, they forget about the fact that just because you create it doesn't mean people are going to get it. You still have to market everything you create. I love people come to me, oh, I'm going to start a podcast. And I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, because I want to monetize it. And I'm like, do you realize how hard it is to monetize a podcast? And we talk about the different ways you can do that, but all the work that goes into it. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's not as easy as I thought. Same thing goes with a book. Just because you write a book doesn't mean you're Oprah Winfrey overnight, you guys. Like, it doesn't mean you're, super famous like James Patterson. Unless you have a huge following already. I hate to break it to you, it's going to take a lot of work to market that thing. And if you're putting that much effort and creativity and heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears into whatever that thing is, I want to make sure that you're set up for success to share it with the world so that you build your legacy, but also monetize that thing so that you can live your life. And I like to say, people that are like, oh, it's slimy to get money. No, it's not. I like my clients to go big so they can give big. I want you to have so much profit that we're like, cool, what charity are we donating to? What nonprofit are we going to start? Who are we going to invest back in? And if we can have more people, more bright lights in the world that are doing that, imagine all the problems that we can solve.
Yeah, because it is my belief, and this is Michael Taylor's belief, that entrepreneurs are the key to resolving a lot of the world's challenges. And are you familiar with Peter Diamandis?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not good with names.
Peter Diamandis, he's a guy, he's written several books. He's a billionaire. This guy's amazing. He coaches entrepreneurs to build companies that change the world, kind of like what my tagline says. But Peter says that every person has what he called an MTP, a massively transformative purpose. So he said the key to success as an entrepreneur is to find your MTP. What is your purpose? Now, that kind of leans into the spiritual, which I believe entrepreneurship should be. But he's really good at breaking down technologies and reasons for optimism with science. So again, he's got this really optimistic, positive outlook, but he puts out an amazing newsletter that shares some of the new technologies that are coming out and how it's impacting the world. He's written several amazing books. One that I really love is called The Future is Faster Than You Think. And he really talks about evolving technology and how it's making the world a better place. And if you lean towards the optimist and you want some reasons, some concrete reasons why you should be optimistic, you need to check out his stuff because it's amazing what he shares. He's the guy, he launched a program called, what was it called? No, SpaceX was Elon Musk. But anyway, he started this thing where he challenged companies. He said, look, I'm going to start a contest where if you can build a spaceship that goes up into space and reaches a certain height and stays up there for a certain amount of time, comes back down, and within 3 days, you're able to relaunch it and do it again, you get $10 million. Okay. So he launched this contest, right? And people from around the world started building these spacecraft to do that. And it was because of that contest that the space tourism industry is starting to take off. And what you're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years is that a lot of people, unfortunately, at the beginning, it's going to be for wealthy people, obviously, will actually be able to go up in space, and they're going to have a space hotel in space. And I'm excited about that because I will definitely go. But it's really amazing how he talks about having this MTP at a very young age, that he wanted to be an astronaut. He couldn't become an astronaut. He then graduated from MIT, and he's a doctor and got all these degrees. But he said he's always been driven by the want to be in space. And I say all that to say, as an entrepreneur, we have to find our MTP. What is it that lights us up in a way that we go, yeah, that's what I want to do? So for me, I never dreamed of being a writer or a speaker. But I've always known that I want to be an entrepreneur. As a matter of fact, I started my first company when I was 14 years old. But as I went on this spiritual journey, this personal growth journey, I found that I have a gift, and that gift is writing and speaking. And so I now use that as my MTP to help inspire and motivate others. So what I'm getting to is that as an entrepreneur, that's a question you need to ask yourself. Have you found your MTP, your massively transformative purpose? Because when you do, it will guide you to find your true authentic purpose. Now, with that being said, I know one of the challenges that a lot of entrepreneurs have is understanding and figuring out what is their niche or their niche. Some people use that term. What are your thoughts on finding, and how do we find our niche markets?
Yeah, so when you're first getting started to find your niche, I like to say have a starter niche, because the problem with most entrepreneurs, business owners, is they want to serve everyone. Well, I hate to break it to you, if you make the mistake of trying to serve everyone, you're going to fail miserably, because you can't market to anyone if you're trying to serve everyone. Like, just want to put that out there. It's not possible. So I like to, and I have like detailed worksheets that I share with my clients on this, detailed interview questions you would ask people you have worked with. You can do like beta clients, where you do free clients or very cheaply priced clients, so that you can start figuring that out and navigating that, experimenting with it. Because ultimately, I'm here to tell you, you're not going to get it right the first time. Like, just guaranteed, you're not going to get it right. It takes practice, experimentation, and very deep understanding to get there. The other thing I'll tell you is that throughout your business journey, your niche is going to change. It's going to expand and contract over time, or it could pivot altogether because of things that happen in the world or things that happen in the market. I went through a change in my niche that had me kind of step back and expand a year and a half ago. I was the holistic business coach, which what I do is still holistic, so it's not out of alignment, but I was marketing to only holistic business owners. And all of a sudden, my sales were drying up, my conversions were decreasing, and I thought something was wrong with me. But I went to a few industry conferences and realized, gosh, this industry has been hit really hard financially. They do not have the funds to invest. So I needed to open my market and my niche back up. So I really stepped back, took a trip to Mexico City by myself, and did some soul searching, and was trying to figure out what are my superpower skills, and how do I push this to a larger, broader audience while still serving in a way that's aligned to my message. And so I looked at that and I realized, gosh, well, I'm really good at helping people find their profit leaks. I'm good at helping people find diversification for revenue streams, coming up with how they turn that shiny thing into money and a profit. I'm also really good at helping on the employee and customer side, and achieving peak performance and keeping customers, keeping employees, building the correct culture. So cool, revenue and performance consultant. That makes sense. Not to mention, I was always doing more than coaching. I was consulting. So I changed from coach to consulting. And then I started experimenting with which industries resonated most with that. So I knew business consultants were always going to be a good audience. So I started going after that. And then I experimented with different regions. And I started literally testing it based on using some tools that I have for campaigns to see which ones were accepting at the highest percentage, which ones were actually becoming clients, and help me get clear. I also recognized from years of working in this industry that speakers and authors were often people that were my people. and they had businesses too, but I'm really good at helping people monetize their speaking career and monetize their books. And so I started targeting business consultants, speakers, and authors. And of course, there are people that come outside of that, but that's my main niche is people in those three categories that have a small to medium sized business that's service based. But you can see that that's an evolution and it requires being very curious, tapping into that creativity, and experimenting with different audiences over time and really following the data as things change over time to see when you need to get curious and reevaluate.
Yeah, and it's extremely important to pay attention to your niche, whatever, because I know one of the mistakes that I made from an entrepreneurial standpoint is I have a niche for empowering Black men. And as a writer and speaker, spend a lot of time and energy writing books and stuff like that. Well, that's not a really huge market for me because unfortunately, Black men don't invest a lot in personal development stuff, just the truth. And so I had to pivot. And so I said, well, what's the next thing? Well, I've always believed that I personally want to live to be 100. It's just a goal of mine. I want to live to 3 digits. It's just me. And so I thought, I know a lot of people over 50 kind of get all tied up in knots about getting older. So why not approach that group? And so I came up with a book called I'm Not Okay with Gray, How to Create an Extraordinary Life After 50. And it's been one of my most popular books to date. And people just love the idea that someone's teaching them that it's okay to grow older. And it's gaining some traction. And it's something that I'm absolutely passionate about. So I fully understand how, as you mentioned, niches will change. And you just have to be willing to pivot with your gifts and talents to the niches that fit you. And it doesn't mean I have to give up the other niche. It doesn't mean I have to stop writing and speaking to Black men. No, it's just that now I focus where the revenue streams are coming the most. And that's kind of where I am. So that's from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Yes, know that once you find your niche, it could change. Just be willing to change with it. Go with the flow, as the saying goes. Now,
Yeah, and I wanted to share two things on that. Sorry, real quick. First of all, people over 50, did you realize that your brain, when you're in their 50s, the right and left side of your brain actually integrate? So some of my most successful clients are in their 50s and 60s because they're freaking brilliant because their brain is finally working all together and they have all this life experience. So quite frankly, I'm looking forward to my 50s. I'm about to turn 40, but I'm just saying the 40s are going to be great. 50s are even better. I'm like super excited about how smart I'll be then. And then secondarily, just because you have a passion area that's not like giving fruitful revenue, you can build a revenue stream that works and then have a foundation, a nonprofit, or a charitable donation for every percentage of every service that you offer that gives back to that thing. So that's how you can integrate it so that it feels authentic and aligned and building your legacy.
yeah, and I read a report somewhere, can't remember the name of it, but it said that the most productive years of a person's life is at 60. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. And what I mean by that is I know that most of us live our lives backwards. And here's what I mean by that. We party when we're young. And then as we get older, we decide, oh, I need to start thinking about things a little differently. And then we're trying to figure out how to recover from all the partying we did when we were young. And so I say the second half of our lives should be better than the first half. And so all the partying, which I did my share of, I put that aside a long time ago. I'm 62. I'll be 63 on Sunday, actually, and super excited about growing older. But what I now know is that what had been missing for me for most of my life was the fact that I chased money for a very long time. It was all about trying to get rich. And as I went through my own personal journey of growing and transforming and healing and spirituality and all that, I came to recognize that it's not about the money. It's really about the purpose. And I love, again, Peter Diamandis when he puts the focus on finding your purpose, because that's what I have been able to do. I found I found my authentic purpose. And as a matter of fact, I've already figured out what I want on my tombstone. It's going to say Michael Taylor, born this day, passed away this day. And on the bottom, it's going to say he did exactly what he came here to do. I already got it all figured out. That's my plan.
Love it. Love it.
So
Happy early birthday.
thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, so we talked about niches. Now let's talk a little bit about branding. And I think this is an important part for entrepreneurs to fully understand branding. Can you talk a little bit about branding and what that means and how to do it?
Yeah, and it's kind of a funny story along with branding. So I'll go through my process when I put my branding together, and then I'll explain why it's funny. So originally, my initial avatar and niche was for women, and I was actually targeting moms. This is like my first launch, right? My baby starter niche. And the irony is that I kept the branding because I was like, why am I going to redo all this stuff? And it was always had that holistic lens. So I always had health, clarity, business. So my logo on the website is Holly Jean Jackson. There's another Holly out there, by the way. She writes murder books. That's why I go with Holly Jean Jackson. Anyhow, the logo and the colors that I selected were based on that initial avatar. What's really funny to me is that all of my branding was meant to attract women, and most of my clients are men. Do they care about the coloring? They do not. But I think also the fact that I chose purple, which is, if you look at color, I've worked with people that are color experts. It represents royalty. And not that I like work with royal snobs or anything, but to me, royalty means that we are aligned with our soul's purpose and our soul's calling, and we're going after that. So I think that's why that color has been a really great attraction point for folks. Now, for my book branding, that was very different. And it was very intentional. So the name, the colors, the book cover, the whole thing was really, the idea came to me during meditation, the name for Inspiration Contagion. I had this idea on my heart to write this book about my chronic pain journey and the struggle with that. But every time I tried to write it, I'd get stuck and I couldn't figure out why. And during the pandemic, I was very hyper aware of how much fear and darkness and animosity there was in the world. And I wanted to create something the opposite of that. So the idea for having a podcast that would then hold me accountable to writing what became a book series, originally just a book, so that I could interview other leaders who had inspirational stories of how they overcame health challenges or business challenges. So we launched that, and the coloring for the book is very like red and yellow, and the book cover has a campfire on it because healing happens in circles around a campfire. So it's a very like vibrant color, and it's meant to be a beacon of light in darkness. We have a world today, we have war, we have potential recession, we have all this negative news. And we've been talking this whole time about being optimistic and thinking good, and how our brains are already have this negativity bias. So I want Inspiration Contagion and what I do in my business, what I do with all my branding, to be this beacon of light and hope for healing. Because my big why, since you were talking about yours, I forget the term that you use, but my big why is to heal the world. I am here to heal the world. And how I do that is by helping business owners that are doing positive things in their communities be successful, have more revenue so they can give back more. And a lot of them have these amazing nonprofits that are helping children in Africa and sustainable farming in different countries and doing these incredible things. And that's the only thing that keeps me hopeful for our world. So I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but your branding, the color palette you choose, the images, the names need to be very intentional, very aligned to your why, very aligned to the person you're trying to attract, and also be a polar magnetic push away for people that are not your people. If anybody follows me, you'll understand I'm very spiritual. You'll understand I'm very purpose driven. I'm very intentional about who I spend my time with. I'm intentional about my boundaries. And that is part of my marketing. If you don't like those things, you do not want to have a call with me. And so marketing is equally, and your branding is equally meant to attract the right people and dispel the people that are not a fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when it comes to marketing, I know there are some entrepreneurs who are completely overwhelmed by social media. Just overwhelmed. Don't know which direction to go. Where should I be posting? Blah, blah, blah. Can you give us some tips on engaging with social media?
Yeah. So if you're just getting started, get started small, keep it simple. Today is like easier than ever to do this. So you can, if you suck at writing, do video. There are AI tools that actually help you get video shorts so that you don't have to do all the editing. They're pretty good. They even do captioning for you. So you're lucky. Like when I started doing this years ago, they didn't have that. So that was like kind of a pain in the butt. So you can start there. And then the other thing too is to figure out which platforms you want to invest your time on. So for me, most of my people are on LinkedIn. I'm working with business consultants, authors, entrepreneurs. They're all on LinkedIn. But for somebody who has like a dance studio or a mom's group, your people are most likely on Facebook and Instagram. So you want to invest time there. If you're working with men or dads groups, you want to spend your time on LinkedIn and YouTube because they watch videos and because they're usually professionals. Depending on where your niche is, you need to figure out what's the best platform to reach them. Now, a couple other marketing tips in the social media world. For one, if you're on YouTube, if you're going to post things, you want to choose a regular time because the YouTube algorithm prefers that. It's going to bring you up higher, give you more things. You also want to play with YouTube shorts and YouTube bumper ads because you get more traction there. If you're on LinkedIn, you want to make sure you have more professional content, but also some personal things. It's interesting, like a lot of the stuff that I do that's kind of no filter, random coffee shot or something gets a lot of traction on LinkedIn. And in general, overall, regardless of the platform, the one message I want you to take away when it comes to marketing is that stories stick. Choose stories that have the pain point, the turning point, the solution that are aligned to what you do in your business. Share client stories, share your personal stories, share that pivot point, and share it online because people remember stories, they connect with stories, and that's what sticks. And there's a book called Winning the Story Wars that talks about this deeply. And I believe it. I use it in my business. But share stories. People connect with that. People buy from people. They buy based on how you make them feel. They don't care about the statistics, so stop spreading that and share stories that matter.
Next important piece for entrepreneurs is the good old email list. Tell us about the email list and is it important?
I'm just laughing because yes, this is where people leave money on the table all the freaking time. They forget they spent all this time building their email list and then they don't do anything with it. They don't nurture their email list. They don't sell to their email list. They don't keep their email list clean. They don't continue to grow their email list. These are all massive opportunities, and your email list is the one thing. I mean, granted, you want to back up any list that you have because if you listen to any of my content, you don't want to trust any platform. You want to make sure you always have a backup of all the things you're building because it would suck if you lost it later. But your email list, these are your people. They signed up. They actually had enough trust to give their email address and their content to you so that you can share with them. You need to be nurturing with them. Every second email needs to be a nurturing email. Just literally sharing a story, sharing a win, sharing something that's going to build that relationship like you're writing to a friend. And then the other ones you can use to market to your list. And guess what? People freak out. Oh, it's so terrible. I sent this email and I got a bunch of unsubscribes. Hello, you're doing your job if you're getting unsubscribes. Like you want the unsubscribes. So stop complaining because that's part of testing marketing. You want people to leave that are not your people, that are dead space on your list. So yes, you need to focus time on your list. Otherwise, that's your gold mine there. Your list is your gold mine. I have a blog coming out next month called Your Business ATM. Your email list is on there. So yes, you want your email list to remain nurtured.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a really, really important piece. And that's the piece where I'm working. And I noticed that there's some people that will come out to you and say, I'll sell you an email list, a list. To me, that's just all spam. But can you tell us about the proper way to build an email list?
Yeah, you don't want to buy somebody's list. So your email list, you're using what we call lead magnets. So people overcomplicate this and think, oh, ClickFunnels, like that's the Rolls Royce of lead magnets. You don't need that. You could use a simple Google form to get their information and then have a thing you're giving them. It's that simple. But essentially, a lead magnet is a free thing you give your audience that solves a problem quickly that they have. And it's not giving all your stuff away. It's just one small step in the journey, building trust, giving them a win. But it needs to be big enough step that you're actually, you have to sell them on the lead magnet. These days, you can't just sell them on buying something. You have to sell them on giving their email to you. So you have to make sure it's compelling enough, it's sexy enough, it's catchy enough, it's like problematic enough that they're like, I need this thing from Michael because he knows how to solve this. And I need to give my email to him so that I can get this thing. So it could be an ebook, it could be an audio, it could be a one pager, it could be whatever you want it to be. Honestly, it's easier if it's digital because then you can automate it and send it out. But that's a good way to build your email list. Another way too is when you have conversations with people or calls, or if you have your own monthly webinar, you can also say, would you have like a button that says, would you like to opt into the email list? And then of course, there's your blog. You want to have an intake form on your blog or pop-ups on your website that say, do you want this free thing? Or do you want to get, updates from Michael Taylor's website? And they can opt in for that. That's the proper way to build your email list. Anything outside of that should go into your CRM. That's your customer relationship management tool. And that's where people that have not opted into, you can still communicate with them, but it's not dinging your domain name. And if you are sending or subscribing people to your list that have not subscribed, you are going to be dinged as a spammer and your open rate will be very, very low.
Yeah, that's the big mistake we don't want to make. Now, last piece as we wind down is podcasting. Podcasting as a vehicle to obviously go out there and get your message out there, but also, as you mentioned, to monetize your knowledge. So can you talk a little bit about the advantages of having a podcast?
Okay, so if you have your own podcasts, how I monetize mine is not by sponsors because that's a lot of work and a lot of overhead, and it's not easy to get them either. So I do what we call the 4 Ps. So I only invite folks to guest on my podcast who are potential purchasers, potential partners, potential promoters, or potential platforms. Again, purchasers are obviously your clients. Promoters are people that are going to cross-promote your materials to a similar audience that are your people. Platforms are stages you want to speak in where your people are that you could have as purchasers. And partners are people that are going to refer you business. Those 4 things generate revenue. If you listen to my podcast, all the people on there are one of those 4 Ps. Otherwise, they're not on my podcast. So that's one way that you can actually monetize your podcast. That's not a lot of overhead or a lot of work. And if you think about sales and humans, there's law of reciprocity. You give something to someone, they want to give something back in return. You help give somebody exposure, they want to give you something back in return. So for example, if I have a big stage I want to land, I would invite the person who's in charge of that event onto my podcast so that they can sell sponsorships and tickets to help them out. And then at the end of the call, I leave space and I say, hey, we had really great chemistry. I love what your event is about. I'd love to get more involved. Typically, they offer me a speaker slot at their event. It's that easy. So that's how you can actually use your podcast in a way that generates revenue. That's not the traditional way to do it. And it actually works.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. What I love about you and your work is on our very first call, on your call, actually, you provided what I say is value. It was like, okay, so here's a person that is really committed to me winning. And it wasn't about you just wanting to sell me something. So there's an art to that. And I love how you focus on the spiritual, in that I personally believe that everything I do is based on my spirituality and what I believe. And to be connected with like-minded, like energy type people is extremely important to me. And so someone once said that your vibe attracts your tribe.
I was literally thinking that. That's so funny. I say that all the time.
your vibe attracts your tribe. And I really believe that, because I don't believe in accidents. I do believe that there's this amazing universal flow that when we get into it, it will guide us and it will bring to us the things, the people we need to succeed. I'm a firm believer in that. And so I say all of that to say it is absolutely my joy to have met you, to know about your work. And now I want to give you an opportunity to share how people can find you who might be a part of your tribe, who your vibe may reach them and they may say, hey, I want to check her. I want to talk to her. So here's your opportunity for your elevator pitch to the people who are watching this. So go for it.
Yeah. So if you liked what we talked about and you want to learn more about me, there's several ways you can get involved in my tribe, which I'm building regularly. There is the Your Message Matters community. We have a monthly event. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll get that. You can send me a message under Holly J. Jackson on LinkedIn. You can also go to my website at Holly Jean Jackson. And if you go under schedule an appointment, you can actually schedule a free consulting call if you're interested in working with me and just seeing if we're a fit. If we have great chemistry, awesome. If not, no worries. I'll introduce you to someone else that might be a fit for you. And then, of course, there's my podcast you can tune into and the book. You can go to www.inspirationcontagion.com to learn more about the podcast. The book is on Amazon under Inspiration Contagion. And actually, in a few months, it'll be out on Audible as well. So stay tuned for that. Those are the best ways you can reach me. If you are old school and you want to send an email, you can do that at holly@hollyjeanjackson.com.
So now I'd like to give you an opportunity for your final words of wisdom, whatever's on your heart to share.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me is that your life matters. You deserve a life of health, vitality, success, all the things. So what is keeping you from taking action that matches the size of your dreams? And think about that and then take one step towards that. Take one big action, even if it feels small, and just get 1% closer to that big motivating factor for you.
Nice. And let me circle back to one other point that I want to make. And I want to get your thoughts on failure, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they self-destruct because they may experience what they perceive to be a failure. So what are your thoughts on failure real quick?
At this point in my journey, I believe that the only way you fail is when you don't try, when you actually give up on yourself. But it took a long time to get to this place of being able to believe that. And essentially, I look at what we traditionally in society call quote unquote failure as a lesson, an opportunity to learn. I have failed many times, Michael, in traditional ways. Trust me, I have fallen flat on my face. I have flopped. I have messed up. I have made lots of mistakes. And if I sat there and said, oh my gosh, I'm going to give up on this because of that, I would never have made it. Being an entrepreneur requires so much faith and belief that I cannot even describe to you. So you have to get over your fear of failure and you have to redefine it. Failures are opportunities for us to learn new lessons and grow. And actually, when you feel like you're failing the most, you are learning the most. So instead of thinking, what is life doing to me? What is life doing for you?
I love that. And my favorite mentor is a guy named Wayne Dyer, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And one of the best lessons I learned from Wayne was there's really no such thing as failure. There's only the non-attainment of a desired result. And I love that. When I heard that, it just made a lot of sense to me. I said, oh yeah. So I wanted this result. It didn't happen. It's just that simple. So rather than beat myself up and feel like a failure, I didn't attain that result. Now, what's the next result that I want to create? So I want to leave you with that idea, folks. Think about it. There's no such thing as failure. There's only the non-attainment of a desired result. So know that you have within you the capacity to be, to do, to have anything you set your mind to. But you're going to have some support. And that's why it's important to have people like Holly and myself that can give you some guidance and inspiration to help you do this, because it is challenging. And as I mentioned, If it doesn't challenge you, it can't change you. So Holly, I just want to say thank you for spending an hour with us. I absolutely love everything that you're about. And again, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And I wish you continued success in everything that you do.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. You too.
All righty. So this has been another episode of Joy, Passion, and Profit. We'll see you next episode. Take care.
Thanks for joining us here at Joy, Passion, and Profit. Always remember, you are the master of your own destiny and the captain of your own ship. There are no limits to what you can accomplish, and you are only limited by your imagination. Dream big and navigate your ship in the direction of your dreams. And once you get there, reach back and grab someone else and show them how to reach theirs. Until next time, focus on your joy, share your passions, and give gratitude for your profits.